Have you ever wondered how a simple sketch, evolves into the complex reality of a building?
It's quite a journey, isn't it? From idea to structure.
It really is. And today, we're diving deep into a really crucial stage in that journey.
The point where the architect's vision gets translated into the actual instructions for building it.
Exactly. We're talking about the creation of construction documents.
Ah, the nitty-gritty.
Definitely. And if you're fascinated by how the built world comes together, maybe how these complex projects actually happen, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future deep dives into this world.
Good point. There's a lot to explore here.
So today, we'll unpack what these construction documents actually are.
Right, what goes into them, the different elements.
And crucially, why getting them right, the quality aspect, is just so paramount for any successful building project.
Absolutely. We'll be looking at the definitions, where this fits in the whole design process,
Uh-huh. The deliverables, what actually gets produced.
and, like you said, quality assurance. How do you make sure they're good?
And our exploration today, it's based on a really detailed chapter all about construction documents.
A solid foundation for our chat.
Yeah, and we know many of you listening are interested in understanding how these big projects come together. So this deep dive should give you a really good foundational understanding of this, essential phase.
Okay, let's get into it.
All right, let's unpack this. So reading through the source, what's kind of fascinating right off the bat is how it defines what we're even talking about.
Yes, it starts really clearly. It says construction documents are basically the working drawings and the specifications. Simple enough, right?
Seems like it, yeah.
But, and this is key, it stresses they aren't standalone things. You have to think of them together.
Okay, so how do they relate?
Well, think of it like this. The drawings, they show you what to build, the layout, the form.
The visual stuff.
Exactly. Then, the specifications, they tell you how to build it, what materials, what quality standard.
Got it. The what and the how?
Precisely. And then you combine those with the actual contract, the agreement between the owner and builder, and the general conditions.
Ah, so it becomes a bigger package.
That's right. And that complete package, the contract documents, that's what really governs the whole construction process. Legally, practically, everything.
That makes perfect sense. It's like the architect isn't just handing over pictures, they're providing a comprehensive, legally binding instruction manual.
That's a really good way to put it, an instruction manual.
And it sounds like these documents really place the architect in a pretty central role, especially during the construction itself.
They do. The chapter points out that most construction contracts give the architect significant authority based on these documents.
Authority in what way?
Well, for things like evaluating the work as it progresses, certifying payments, making sure everything conforms to what was agreed upon in those drawings and specs.
Right, making sure it's all up to snuff.
Exactly. Which, of course, puts a huge responsibility back on the architect.
To make sure those instructions, those documents, are absolutely crystal clear, right? No room for doubt.
Absolutely. That's the fundamental goal the chapter highlights. Establish a clear, transparent basis for managing that construction contract.
Because ambiguity leads to
Problems. Big problems. Misunderstandings, disagreements, claims from the contractor, you name it. The more precise the documents, the fewer loopholes or gray areas.
fewer arguments down the line.
Definitely. In fact, some studies, they suggest a pretty significant chunk of cost overruns on projects can be traced directly back to fuzzy information or contradictions within the construction documents themselves.
Wow. That really underscores the need to nail this stage. So, okay, where do these construction documents fit in the grand scheme of things? We know about pre-design, schematic design, design development, those earlier creative stages.
Right. So if you think about the project timeline, developing the construction docs is really the moment where all that earlier thinking, all those concepts and client approvals, they solidify.
It's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Kind of, yeah. The client's vision, the architect's design intent that got fleshed out during schematic and design development, all that gets translated into super detailed instructions.
So no more big picture stuff. It's all detail now.
Pretty much. It's taking the approved design and figuring out exactly how every single component, every connection, every material goes together. It becomes the blueprint, literally and figuratively.
It sounds like, ideally, by this point, there shouldn't be any major design surprises left. The chapter mentions critical design decisions should already be hammered out.
Yes, and that's crucial for efficiency. You don't want to be fundamentally rethinking major aspects of the design while you're trying to document the tiny details.
So what counts as critical here? What needs to be locked down?
Think of foundational stuff. Things that have ripple effects. The core
Mhm.
structural system, is it steel? Is it concrete? Major architectural elements that define the whole building's organization.
Like the main circulation paths or the overall form.
Exactly. Also, regulatory stuff. Have the big zoning issues been resolved? Do we know we can meet the main building code requirements with this design? Getting those big pieces confirmed before diving into CDs is key.
Makes sense. You wouldn't want to detail all the window trim only to find out the whole structural grid needs to change.
Precisely. That would be incredibly inefficient and costly.
Okay, so let's talk about what's actually in this set of documents. The chapter lists the core components, drawings, specifications, and schedules. Can you break those down for us?
Sure. So drawings, that's probably what most people picture when they think of blueprints.
Floor plans, elevations.
Right. Floor plans showing layouts, elevations showing the exterior look, sections cutting through the building to show how it's put together, and lots of detailed drawings zooming in on specific connections or assemblies. They're the visual representation.
Got it. And specifications.
Specifications are the written counterpart. They go hand in hand with the drawings. They describe the materials, what kind of concrete, what type of paint, which specific window model. They also define the quality of workmanship required.
So how well something needs to be installed.
Exactly. And performance criteria. How waterproof does this roof need to be? How much sound should this wall block? And importantly, how will we test or verify that the work meets these standards? It's all spelled out in the specs.
So drawings show where, specs define what and how well. What about schedules then?
Schedules are basically tables. Really organized lists of information about similar items. A classic example is a door schedule.
Okay. What would that show?
It would list every single door in the project, maybe door 101, door 102, etc. And for each one, it details its size, the material, the hardware set.
Hinges, handles, locks.
Right. Fire rating, maybe the frame type, any special notes. It gathers all that door info in one place.
Super organized.
Very. And you have similar schedules for room finishes, floor material, wall paint color, ceiling type for every room. Or window schedules, equipment schedules, even things like plumbing fixtures.
It brings a lot of detailed info together concisely.
That's the idea. Makes it easier to find and manage that data.
The chapter also mentions complementary documents. What falls into that category?
These are kind of extra documents needed for specific situations, often on more complex projects. Their main job is usually to clarify things that involve multiple disciplines, or integrate information that draws from both the drawings and the specs.
Can you give an example?
Sure, maybe there's a really tricky connection between a structural steel beam, a curtain wall system, and the roofing membrane. A complementary document, perhaps a large-scale detailed drawing, with extensive notes referencing specific spec sections, could pull all that information together in one place to make it unmistakably clear how it all integrates.
So it helps bridge potential gaps between different parts of the main documents.
Exactly. Ensuring everyone, structural engineer, facade consultant, roofer, is on the same page for those critical interfaces.
Okay, so with all these pieces, drawings, specs, schedules, maybe complementary docs, there must be some key qualities that make a set of construction documents good. The chapter mentions clarity, readability, constructability.
Yes, these are really the benchmarks for quality. Let's take clarity first.
What makes a document clear?
It's about removing ambiguity, making sure the information is directly relevant to the work being shown, using really good cross-referencing so you don't repeat info, which avoids contradictions.
So referencing section A on drawing X instead of describing it again on drawing Y?
Precisely. And using consistent graphic standards, symbols, line weights, clear text, and consistent terminology in the specs. No room for misinterpretation.
Okay. And readability, how is that different?
Readability is more about how easy it is to use the documents. Are the drawings well organized? Not too cluttered? Is the information presented logically?
So someone can actually find what they need quickly.
Yes. Whether it's a contractor trying to price the job or someone on-site figuring out a detail, they shouldn't have to hunt through pages of confusing information. It needs to be accessible.
Then there's intelligibility of design solutions. That sounds a bit more abstract.
It's about making sure the why behind the design comes through, especially for unique features. The documents should clearly communicate the architect's intent.
So the builder understands the aesthetic goal, not just the technical requirement.
Right. How different parts are meant to come together to achieve the desired look and feel. It should foster a shared understanding of the vision.
Makes sense. And constructability, that seems pretty crucial.
Oh, absolutely. This is the reality check. Can this design actually be built efficiently and effectively with available technology, materials, and skills.
So thinking about the actual building process.
Yes. Does the sequence make sense?
Yeah.
Are the specified materials readily available in that location? Is the required labor skill available? If you're proposing something really innovative, is it clearly explained and feasible?
You have to think like a builder almost.
You definitely do. Architects need to consider how things physically go together on site.
And the last one mentioned is usability. How does that fit in?
Usability is about fitness for purpose across the whole project lifecycle. Do the documents provide the right level of detail for bidding, for construction, for the owner operating the building later?
So serving all the different users effectively.
Exactly. They need to work for everyone who relies on them.
The chapter also really stresses the quality of the language itself, written and graphic, avoiding errors, maintaining consistency.
Absolutely. It might seem small, like a typo on a spec or
Yeah.
an inconsistent line weight on a drawing, but those things can introduce ambiguity,
And ambiguity leads back to.
problems, misinterpretations, delays, cost increases, disputes. Meticulous attention to detail in the language, both words and symbols, is just paramount for clear communication.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the planning of producing these documents. It sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is often the most resource-intensive phase for the architect's office.
So the architect needs to think about budget, resources, the schedule.
Definitely. And the chapter strongly recommends getting formal client sign-off on the design development phase before diving headlong into construction documents.
Why is that approval so critical right then?
It's risk management, really. It confirms everyone agrees on the design before you invest potentially thousands of hours detailing it. Making major design changes after CDs have started is hugely disruptive and expensive.
So you lock in the design direction first.
You really need to.
Yeah.
That client approval provides a clear baseline.
And the architect often acts as the coordinating professional, right? Bringing together work from engineers and other consultants.
Yes, that's a core role. They need to map out who is producing which drawings, what information is needed from each consultant, structural, mechanical, electrical, etc.
Sounds like project management within the design process itself.
It absolutely is. Developing a work plan, managing different software maybe, estimating time, assigning tasks, and constantly coordinating to make sure everyone's work fits together.
The chapter even suggests a specific meeting, a pre-construction document phase design team meeting. What's the goal there?
It's a kickoff, essentially. Get everyone on the design team, architect, engineers, key consultants together before the heavy documentation starts.
To get everyone on the same page.
Exactly. Review the approved design development package, discuss the project goals again, set up communication protocols, coordinate schedules, and deliverables. It's about proactive collaboration to iron out potential issues early.
It's interesting. The chapter points out that these documents aren't just technical instructions. They also have to capture the design's aesthetic intent. How do architects balance that?
It's a constant balancing act. You need enough technical detail for correct construction and performance.
Waterproofing, structure, energy codes.
Right. But you also need to convey the visual and spatial quality. This comes down to careful material selections, specifying finishes precisely, detailing junctions where materials meet to achieve that desired look.
So those unique design features need extra clear articulation.
Absolutely. If there's a special facade detail or an innovative interior element, the CDs need to explain exactly how it's achieved, both technically and aesthetically.
Now, something else that significantly impacts these documents is the project delivery method. The chapter talks about traditional stipulated price versus, say, construction management.
Yes, this is a really critical factor. The delivery method dictates how complete and coordinated the CDs need to be at certain points.
Okay, so for a traditional lump sum bid,
For a stipulated price contract, where builders give a single fixed price based on the documents, those documents need to be extremely complete and accurate, like bulletproof.
because the builder is basing their entire price on exactly what's shown and specified.
Precisely. Any gaps, errors, or inconsistencies can lead to change orders, cost increases, and disputes once construction starts. The risk is high if the documents aren't tight.
Okay, and how does that change with something like construction management?
With CM, especially fast-track approaches where design and construction overlap.
Building the foundations while the upper floors are still being designed.
Sort of, yeah. The CDs might be developed and issued in packages, maybe an early package for foundations and structure, then another for the building shell, then interiors.
More phased.
More phased. But the chapter cautions, even with fast tracking, you still need the design for critical building-wide systems resolved very early to ensure everything integrates properly later. You can't fast track everything without coordination.
It even mentions using CM strategically for early work, like demolition on a renovation, to find out more about existing conditions before finalizing the design.
Exactly. On complex renovations or historic projects, you might need to do some careful exploratory surgery first. A CM approach lets you issue an early package for that specific work based on preliminary info.
And the findings then feed back into the final CDs.
Correct. It provides crucial information to complete the design accurately.
So ultimately, what should a really good, comprehensive set of construction documents achieve? What's the end goal?
The chapter sums it up well. When combined with the rest of the project manual, they need to provide all the necessary information for contractors to prepare accurate bids or cost estimates,
Okay.
to obtain all the required building permits from authorities,
Right, the legal hurdles.
and to effectively plan and execute the construction work itself, meeting all the specified standards for quality and performance. They enable the whole process.
Got it. And finally, there's a big focus on quality assurance and quality control for the documents themselves.
Yes, because the quality of these documents directly impacts client satisfaction, project success, and how complicated or smooth the architect's job is during construction.
So what are the key things architects need to be checking in their QA/QC process?
It's a rigorous review, checking for continuity with the approved design development documents, making sure nothing got lost or changed unintentionally.
It's a big time.
Consistency in format, presentation, terminology across all drawings and specs. Diligently hunting for errors, omissions, or any remaining ambiguities.
Making sure everything lines up internally.
Exactly. Verifying internal consistency. Do the plans match the sections? Do the details align with the overall drawings? Do the specs match what's shown on the drawings?
And it sounds like a vital part of this is thinking about field feasibility, how it actually goes together on site.
Absolutely. Even with standard products, architects need to detail critical interfaces where wall meets roof, window meets wall, different materials join,
Why are those interfaces so important?
because that's where things often go wrong. Ensuring continuity of insulation, air barriers, waterproofing, those details are crucial for building performance and durability.
And codes, of course.
And codes. A fundamental check is verifying the entire documented design complies with all applicable building codes, fire codes, accessibility standards, everything. It's a huge responsibility.
Okay, so wrapping things up from our deep dive today. It's clear construction documents are way more than just blueprints.
Definitely. This whole package, drawings, specs, schedules, all working together intricately.
And we've seen how vital that clarity and coordination are. Getting them right avoids misunderstandings, keeps construction smoother.
Yeah, communication is key. And we also touched on how the project delivery method shapes how these documents are created and how critical their completeness is at different stages.
Hopefully this has given everyone listening some aha moments about the sheer level of planning and detail that goes into the buildings we see every day.
It really does give you a new appreciation for the complexity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The precision needed to bring these designs into reality.
It certainly does. And if you want to keep exploring this world of architecture, construction, and how it all comes together, definitely hit subscribe so you catch our future deep dives.
Please do. There's always more to unpack.
So here's a final thought to chew on. Considering just the sheer volume of information packed into a set of construction documents, drawings, specs, schedules, all those details, what do you think is the single most challenging aspect for architects in making sure they are truly accurate and preventing those potentially really costly errors during construction?